In this brief video, we're going to look at the general equation of a line. This is the third type of expression of a line and is actually perhaps the least useful. However, it does have a few properties which are worth looking at. Consider y equals 5/3 x minus 2. We already know from our work with y equals mx plus b that this tells us that the slope is 5/3 and minus 2 tells us the y-intercept. In other words, if we graphed it, we know that it goes through minus 2 on the y with a slope of 5/3, which is about, well, 1.66. So it will look something like this. However, I don't really want to look at it in its current form, but see how it would manipulate to the general form. Well, if y equals 5/3 x minus 2, the whole point of the general form is that all these coefficients a and b and c are all integers. So we need to get rid of the fractional problem in 5/3 x. So let's multiply the entire expression by 3 on both sides, and that will get rid of the fraction. So 3y equals 3 times 5/3 x minus 2. Well, 3 times 5/3 x is 5x, and 3 times minus 2 is minus 6. So 3y equals 5x minus 6. But if you notice, we need everything on one side equal to 0. So let's move the 3y over onto this side. So we'll have 0 equals 5x minus 3y minus 6, or indeed 5x minus 3y minus 6 equals 0, and this is in the general form. Okay, now let's look at an equation given in the general form and see if we can understand it. Well, points lying on this line must have the property that 3 times the x-coordinate plus 4 times the y-coordinate minus 24 equals 0. In other words, 3 times the x-coordinate plus 4 times the y-coordinate needs to equal 24. So if x equals 2, say, then the 3x will be 6. So if 6 plus 4y is 24, then 4y wouldn't equal 18, and so y would equal 4.5. So we have the first point 2, 4.5. If x was equal to 4, for example, then 3x would be 12. So 12 plus 4y equals 24, so 4y would equal 12, so y would equal 3. So we have our second point, 4, 3. If x was to equal 6, then 3x would equal 18. So 18 plus 4y needs to equal 24, so 4y would have to equal 6, so y would have to be 1.5. So we know a third point, 6, 1.5. And this means that we can indeed graph it. 2, 4, 6. So when x is 2, we had 4.5. 1, 2, 3, 4.5. When x is 4, we had y equals 3. And when x is 6, y equals 1.5. So clearly we have a line which does something like this. And we can tell that it has moved from 4.5 on the y to 1.5 on the y, and from 2 till 6 on the x. So it has dropped 3 and moved across 4. So the slope of this line is minus 3/4. If it's coming down 1.5 for every 2 across, clearly it will go up 1.5 for every 2 to the left. So the y-intercept will be 1.5 more than 4.5, where it was here. So the y-intercept will be 6. So the equation of this line should be y equals minus 3/4 x plus 6. However, we can go right to the equation by manipulating this into the best form that we understand, which is y equals mx plus b. So we need to get y by itself. Well, we already have plus 4y, so let's leave that where it is and move the other two things over. So when we take the 3x over, it'll become minus 3x, and when we take the minus 24 over, it will become plus 24. We don't want 4y equals, we want y equals, so we need to divide all of this by 4. So a quarter of minus 3x is minus 3/4 x, and a quarter of 24 is plus 6. So as before, y equals minus 3/4 x plus 6. And here's a second example, and we'll try to find some points which lie on 2x minus 3y minus 18 equals 0, or perhaps more easily 2x minus 3y equals 18. So if x is 3, say, then 2x would be 6. So 6 minus what equals 18? Well, minus 3y would have to equal 12, so y would have to equal minus 4. So 3, negative 4 lies on this line. If x equals 6, for example, then 2x would be 12. So 12 minus what equals 18? Well, minus 3y would have to equal 6. So y would have to equal negative 2. So 6, negative 2 lies on this line. And again, if x equals 9, then 2x would equal 18, in which case we're already done, so y would equal 0. So now we have these 3 points, we can sketch the equation. So we have 3, 6, 9. So when x is 3, y was negative 4. When x was 6, y was negative 2. And when x was 9, y was 0. So the equation looks something like this. So clearly, from x equals 3 to x equals 9, we have a difference of 6. And the y coordinate here is negative 4, and here is 0. So we have an increase of 4. So the slope equals 4/6, which equals 2/3. And of course, every time we go across 3, we go up 2. So if we go left 3, we'll go down 2. So the y-intercept will be 2 less than negative 4, so it will be negative 6. So the equation of this line is actually y equals 2/3 x minus 6. And again, we could have gone straight to the slope-intercept form of the equation by manipulating this, and we'll notice that this contains minus 3y, and we really want y by itself and positive. So actually it makes more sense to move the minus 3y over. So we have 2x minus 18 equals 3y, or 3y equals 2x minus 18, and then I need to divide all of this by 3, or multiply all of it by a third. So y equals a third of 2x, which is 2/3 x, minus a third of 18, which is 6. So as before, y equals 2/3 x minus 6. So the general form of a straight line is a lot more obscure and is far less obvious what's going on than y equals mx plus b. It is actually useful for finding the intercepts, and particularly the x-intercept. So wherever the line crosses one of the coordinate axes, there, for instance on the y-intercept here, the x-coordinate is 0. And similarly, where it crosses the x-axis, the y-coordinate will be 0. So in order to find the intercepts, all we need to do is replace the x and the y by 0 to find what's happening with the other coordinate. So 4x plus 5y minus 20 equals 0, Well, if x equals 0, then we're left with 5y minus 20 equals 0, in which case 5y equals 20, so y equals 4. So we have 0, 4. In other words, a y-intercept of 4. Similarly, if the y was 0, then the 5y term disappears, and we're left with 4x minus 20 equals 0, so 4x equals 20, so x equals 5. So we have 5, 0. So we can quickly draw this. 0, 4, and 5, 0, and we can see straight away that the line will look something like that. And the final example, 5x minus 8y plus 20 equals 0. Well, if x equals 0, then the 5x term disappears, and we're left with minus 8y plus 20 equals 0. So 8y needs to equal 20, so y equals 20 divided by 8, which is 2.5. So we have 0, 2.5. On the other hand, if y equals 0, then the 8y term disappears, and I'm left with 5x plus 20 equals 0. So 5x equals minus 20, so x equals minus 4. We can sketch this quite easily. X equals minus 4 is over here, y equals 2.5 is over here. We have a difference here of 4 and a difference here of 2.5. Slope is increase in y over the increase in x, which simplifies to 5 over 8. And we already know the y-intercept is 2.5, so this is the same as y equals 5/8 x plus 2.5.